Another video on Ringer. I've taken the back glass out and we're going to talk about how the lights work. Now on the back glass, don't mind these are always just going to be flashing their 455 bulbs. But the way that all of these lights work are controlled through the horseshoe unit in the back. And when the player's throwing, player one's over here, the first shot says player one up, and then this is the first horseshoe in that player's hand. The first up player here will be lit, and then I guess this one says pitch, and then this is the first horseshoe. But then the horseshoe moves from here and then down, and then it goes across, and then once we get into this area, this is where the scoring pit is. This will be the 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, then out of the pit light. So the player 2 has the same exact thing, but it's just mirrored the other way. So this would start off in that player's hand, it would say pitch, and then it would say player 2 up. But then these two, it would start off here and then get back to this middle part, and then his scoring box is identical over here. So actually these middle lights are shared between player 1 and player 2, and it toggles through a relay which one is lit, so it knows if it needs to go that way or this way. This is the 1 can play, 2 can play light, and this would be extra. Ringer scores extra shot, and then same player shoots again. This is game over, and then these are shot lights down here. So I don't have one in 8, 9, or 10, but then I have one in 1 through 7. So the way these are all controlled is through the horseshoe unit. And that's the unit on the left here. This needs to reset fully every time the score motor turns, and it needs to reset fully so that the game can fully reset. But once this is at reset, there'll be what's called an engage circuit on this, which will, on this wheel mech, it'll pull in this coil so that this wheel that has the switch on it is engaged with the back side of the wheel that we spin as the player. So this is actually the big wheel on the front of the cab, and when this coil is disengaged and not in contact, but if this is engaged, now they spin together. And as the wheel that you spin with your hand spins this wheel, it pulses this switch. And each pulse through this switch will activate the horseshoe relay, and every time that clicks in, the horseshoe unit is going to advance 1, and it's going to move that light across the screen that you see as the player. Now, once this drops out, we'll show that in a little bit. This drops out after the third or fourth click. Then there's a charging circuit that's in the bottom of the game that keeps that pulse going until the momentum of this wheel eventually stops out. Because after that click, spinning the wheel by hand here no longer affects what this momentum wheel is going to do. But all of that is controlled, and all the lights are controlled through this horseshoe relay. Now this is just a full reset and continuous step up, and then after however many positions there are here, there's a mechanical stop here where the teeth are missing, then it can't go any farther. Now one kind of weird thing on this, if we can sneak in there, is there are 2 switches here that would normally be on a unit like this. If I can back out, these would normally be hit by a peg that comes around to indicate the final position. Now this would be if a player obnoxiously spun the wheel all to hell and the horseshoe would tend to go flying past. I think maybe on earlier versions of Ringer they had a peg here that would come, which would then close the first switch and cut off the pulse from the wheel, and then it would open the other set so that it would stop driving itself. Then I'm thinking my game might be a later version of Ringer. To prevent that from getting overdriven, they've just ground off a few teeth here so that this can no longer physically advance. But you do need to have on these switches, that back one needs to be open. You can see it moving there, and then this one needs to be closed for normal operation. But let's go to the schematics and learn a little more about what this wheel is doing. So on our schematics, again, available at pinrepair.com, this is the horseshoe unit, and then we also have some indication of what's going on in our schematics with these lights. Now these units can be pretty intimidating, but I like what Williams has done here, and they've actually labeled out things pretty clearly as to what each wire is doing in the game. So first, this is shown in reset position on the wipers, And then they also show us which direction the wipers move. This goes counterclockwise. They also tell us up here what resets this unit in case our unit wasn't resetting and we weren't sure why. It tells us look at motor cam switch 4B. Now on here, this is 90 degrees of what it would be in the game. So from our view, that unit's actually sitting like this, where the wires are coming out of the top, the back side, and the bottom, and this is mounted to the wood. But they tell us what each one of these wires do. So if we start off here, let's start off on this inside set. Notice that they say they're insulated wipers, so that means that the two that are shaded the same are creating a circuit on this inside series of rivet contacts. And then the ones that are shaded differently are their own circuit, and then this one's by itself. But if we start off with the slanted cross pattern, we have, it says number 39 and 37. Those correspond to the positions around where the wires are attached. So this inside one is actually controlling that engage circuit. So 39, if we come over here, that says to the engage relay. So that's telling us that each time this advances one position, that engage relay is going to hold that momentum wheel to the wheel that we spun so that it can build up and keep spinning. But once it hits this blank spot, that's where the engage circuit drops out, and then in the next position at 40, that's where the player control relay picks up, and that's the charging circuit that holds the pulse to that coil so that the wheel and the horseshoe can keep moving until the momentum stops it. So that engage and then that switch over to the player control, which holds itself in, is controlled by this inner wiper. And then the opposite side of that is in the same positions, and then you'll notice that it doesn't do anything for a while. It keeps clicking away as the horseshoe keeps moving across, and then we eventually on this inside wiper come to the low 40s. So first 41, that's telling us that this goes to our scoring circuit. So this would correspond to if we had the horseshoe in the box and it was in the 1 position. So this would be for 1 point, then it goes up to 2 points for 42, and then 43 is the actual ringer position, which would engage the ringer relay. And then once, if we bounced it past a ringer, go back to 2, 1, 1, and then nothing. And then the way this rotates, this wiper will eventually end up in that very last position. It will never do a complete 180 though. It would mechanically hit its stop point and then reset for the next throw. So on the inside here, this is how the horseshoe unit completes circuits so that the score motor can give you points for landing the horseshoe in the box. So that's what the inside wiper set does. The middle set that has the parallel lines to the blades here, this starts off at 25 and 36, and you'll notice there's a lot of same numbers here. So let's pay attention to 25. Looking around here, 25, this says it goes up to the first player pitch lights. Now, of the shared lights, these are the first two for player 1, and these ones are unique to player 1. Just like player 2 has the first two unique to them before they get into that middle part where they share the lights. So 25 and 24 are our first player lights there. So 25 and 26. So this is the in the hand and pitch light. They're tied together, then that first one. And then 15 is where we get into the shared lights. So our next sequence goes 15 and then it goes all the way down to 2. So our next sequence here is, if we look at our notes here, the first and second player horseshoe lights. So these are the shared ones in the middle. So then it's going to go all the way from 15 down to 2. So now if we keep following this middle track to 15 to 2, then that's where we get into our scoring lights. So now this is 27, 28, and 29. So this is our no points, 1 point, 1 point, and then 2 points ringer, 2 point, 1 point, 1 point out of the box. Now, on my machine, this is actually hooked to player 1, but the manual here says player 2. But I think that's hooked to player 1 on this inside track. And then you'd be done and you couldn't advance the wheel any further. And then player 2 on my machine is actually at this outside one. So then this would be the unique lights for player 2. Then it goes to the shared ones 1 through 15, and then it gets into its scoring ones as well for the end of the points with our 16, and then counting up from there for our player, and then again I think that's for player 2. Alright, we'll do the shot unit next.